The passage today, in a way, the lesson is very simple. It's, we should do what the Father is asking of us. But going a little bit deeper, we find, be interesting to see, why is it that the two sons, because off the bat, neither one of the two sons gets it right. The one says, when asked by his father, he says, "No, I will not go." Right to his father's face. You can imagine how the father felt in that moment. It was hurtful. It was the wrong thing to say, clearly. Now later on, as he's going away, maybe his conscience kind of called him back and said, "You know what, just go. The other one, he doesn't want to offend. He doesn't want to make people feel uncomfortable, so he's willing to lie to avoid the discomfort of a conversation that he doesn't want to have. And so he says, "Yeah, I'll go." But then he doesn't. Neither one of them does it right. The other one, the first one, fixes the situation. And it'd be interesting to look at this through the lens of fear. The lens of fear. For that first one to look at this and fear what working all day under the sun would feel like. He's like, "Oh man, it's the last thing I want to do." And he gives that reaction. The other one, he fears a difficult conversation. I mean, we've had that. There are conversations that we ought to have. We have to share a very disagreeable truth, and we avoid it. I was like, no, everything is fine. How are you doing, really? No, everything is good. It's fine. They're like, it's not fine. And so we avoid it. I'm going to go backwards, rewind here a few centuries ago. It's 1540, and the first Christian outpost appears in North America. And it's not St. Augustine, that was the place of the first Mass, but even as a community, it was a place we wouldn't really think about Christianity and Spanish Franciscan missionaries arriving first. Kansas. That's right, Kansas. So there was a man, an explorer by the name of Coronado, who starting in Mexico worked his way up, and he was looking for some golden cities that were somewhere north. And he worked his way up through Texas and kept going east and northeast, looking for these golden cities, maybe something like what they had found in Mexico. And as these explorers traveled, it was customary that Franciscan friars would go with them, or other missionaries, to share the faith, to evangelize. Well, when they got to this town in Kansas, it turns out there was nothing. So they all go back. But the Franciscans decide to walk back to Kansas. So after returning, they walk back about 1,000 miles on foot. There were no trails, no GPS. I mean, they're just walking, right? In what is wilderness. And they arrive, and they end up spending 2 years with this indigenous community there, teaching the faith, starting schools, living out on a field, experiencing a Kansas summer and a Kansas winter. And if things are like they are now and they were back then, probably tornadoes, which maybe they had never seen in their life, and all these different things. Learning a language, they had to sit there and write down and try to figure out, put together a dictionary to be able to communicate. And he did this for 2 years. Then eventually, they felt the need, okay, well, let's keep expanding and let's bring this to nearby tribes. Some of them did not like that. And their leader of the Franciscans, his name is Juan de Padilla, and a neighboring tribe came over and did not like what they were doing, so they tried to kill them. Juan de Padilla stood in front of these men with their arrows, knelt down, and told his friars, companions, to run away. As he stood there, he was a shield for their arrows, and he died. The other ones ran away. Eventually, they were enslaved. But even eventually after that, they escaped, went back to Mexico, and told a story of how Christianity first began in what today we call the heartland. And then successful other missions eventually would come back. We hear stories like that, and we have an experience that maybe other saints, other people in history like St. Ignatius of Loyola has had. You hear a story like that, and maybe there's something in us that says, man, if I only had the courage to live like that, if I only had what it takes to do something like that, to live out just with nothing and be fine with it, to be fearless. To they were Spanish, to come from Spain, leaving the language, the culture, the food, everything that they knew, and just be there for somebody else. What allows them to do this is courage. What attracts us about this, it's that it's courageous, and I wish I had a heart like that. What keeps me from living this way is fear, right? There's this fear of letting go of my comforts. Fear of, if I don't have this, that's too uncomfortable. And obviously God is not asking us to go and travel to some mission territory. I don't think so right now. But he is calling us to get a little bit uncomfortable and go work in his vineyard. That's the real invitation. What does that vineyard look like for us today? So we have this split between kind of a desire, something that we value. We hear stories like this. We watch a movie and we see somebody, the hero, kind of take a beating, and at the last second, he does the thing he needs to do to restore order with his last breath. And we're impressed. We're like, I want to be like that person. I want to be like that character. And yet, in reality, I can't get out of bed in the morning because it's uncomfortable, right? And I hit the snooze button. And we're split between that. So we live at once in a world that shows us movies of these great characters, and at the same time tells us, do what you feel like doing. Brothers and sisters, those two are not compatible. We can't live a life just doing what we feel like doing and be the heroes that God's created us to be. In fact, we can't be the heroes that people expect us to be. We can't even be the heroes that we want to put in a movie if we live a life just doing what we feel like doing. And if the feeling that drives our doing is fear, then we're setting ourselves for a very unhappy life. And when I ask people, hey, do you ever want to be unhappy? Nobody says yes. We want to live happy lives. We want that. So maybe here is the solution, is to live fearlessly in what God is asking of me. The second reading is might be my favorite passage in the letters of St. Paul. But this even it's a hymn to Christ who emptied himself. He says, having you the same attitude. Other translations actually say, having you the same sentiments that is also in Christ Jesus, who though he was in the form of God, did not regard equality with God something to be grasped. Rather, he emptied himself. That means he gave up everything, every power that he had. He was still God, but he put those aside and took the form of a slave. He entrusted himself to other men fearlessly. You could argue, well, how do I do this? Very simple. How do I go from fear to courage? Simple formula. Courage is just fear that said its prayers. That's it. Courage is fear that has said its prayers. And in prayer, we go into the heart of Christ, and we read this, and we say, Lord, I do want to have a heart like that. Give me a heart like that so I can fearlessly do what you're asking of me. And God is certainly asking of each of us something. He doesn't make junk. When he makes somebody, when he makes us, when he forms us, he gives us a plan to follow. And there is our joy. So what is God calling me to? Maybe he's certainly calling me into his vineyard, but what does that look like? My vineyard here, maybe for most of you who are students, is certainly to give witness to the faith. Now, what does that look like in your life? Well, ask God. God, what are you asking of me? How do you want me to give witness to my faith? Because the vineyard is this campus for most of you. That's your vineyard. As far as I know, unless you tell me otherwise, a few of you have said, I feel called to build hospitals in some third world country or something. Maybe later on, you'll do that. But today, in the next few years, you're here. This is your vineyard. And God calls you to work in that vineyard. And he's a loving father that I guarantee when those two sons kind of gave the wrong answers, he's like, man, what a shame. And yet, even if we've said no, we can follow the example of the first son who says, okay, I said no yesterday, I said no earlier today, but I can still say yes, and God will take us. He takes big sinners. We hear it in the gospel as well. He has no problem with that. He will take us. All he wants is our yes. And he wants us to have the courage that doesn't come from us. When I say that courage is fear that said its prayers, is because that courage is not from us. It's a grace that God gives us. Let's ask the Lord today, as we're fed for this mission, that he gives us the clarity. In fact, let's ask him the question, Lord, you call me to work into your vineyard. Show me the kind of work that you want me to do, and give me the strength and the courage to see it through so that it bears fruit in my life and in the life of so many people you entrust to my care.